Hi friends, happy day to you. I'm so glad you're here and thank you for joining me wherever you are on this beautiful earth that we get to call home. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Heather. I am an herbalist, medical intuitive, and farmer here in Wyoming. My husband and I farm on his family's fourth generation farm here, and we're establishing a medical herb garden and farm on a little chunk of our ground. I have been working with medicinal plants for over 15 years in a very scientific setting and later a more spiritual setting, so I encompass both of these modalities that I feel are equally as important to working with the land, working with the plants, reconnecting with our vitality as humans, and nourishing the land that we all are rooted into no matter where we are. I have an online apothecary where I create and offer potent extracts of plants that are meant to nourish your body, bring us back into the resonance of being stewards of the land, nourishing ourselves with the nutrients of our beloved plant medicines. And I work with all bioregion of the Rocky Mountains, but a lot of these plants grow at all elevations, like the one I'm going to talk about today. I am, for this year, first off, we are officially growing every plant that I offer at the farm. It's a very exciting thing, and we're sourcing all from the farm, a little bit of foraging in the lands, but it's all coming from here, and that is very exciting. I am thrilled. It's a big dream come true, and we are just growing and growing and establishing more and more. And I'm so grateful for all of you for being here in this space as we collectively learn what it is to reconnect to the earth and how to nourish ourselves via plant nutrients. So a couple weeks ago, last week maybe, I posted a video on stinging nettles, Urtica dicosa. I was shocked and so excited about the beautiful response that I got from that video. How we are beginning to understand that what the difference is between dietary supplements and a potent herbal extract, and how we can begin to shift our supplementation to plant-made nutrients only. And there's lots of beautiful companies doing this. There's a lot of small batch herbalists like myself who are making remedies for our communities, and understanding that like the big companies, a lot of the huge companies who are putting calcium citrate, potassium malate, magnesium, all the different forms of magnesium, and how those are coming from raw forms of these nutrients. So raw meaning rock, and we are taking in the rock essentially. And how that does not lead to absorption of these nutrients, how it leads to a lot of the nutrients either going right through our system or, worst case scenario, being stored in our bodies and creating problems, and usually creating problems to that we're trying to take the supplements to alleviate said problems. So I won't go really deep into that. Please go visit the nettle video that talks about that last week. But how the plants provide these glorious nutrients for us, and they make them biologically available to our bodies, for our bodies to absorb, so that we are actually using all of the nutrients that come from these plants and that are in these supplements where these plants are extracted in. So watching our ingredient list, when we see a 60 milligram vitamin C, that is a good sign. We don't need 5,000 milligrams of vitamin C. We're excreting most of that through our urinary tract. When we get it from a plant and it's a 60, or we go down into the ingredient list and see all plant material, we know we're getting a biologically available plant supplementation that is going to nourish our bodies, and we are not wasting our energy, we're not wasting our resources, and we are supporting the return to the earth, return to nature-made nutrients that is really going to keep us all nourished and all vital human beings, so that we can function and be excited and be happy and be nourished, be healthy throughout our years by nature. It's a very exciting thing to be providing this information. So I want to talk about another plant that I am thoroughly obsessed with, thoroughly in love with, and that is dandelion. I just picked this one out of the yard. As you can see, my yard is full of them. I don't really use the yard ones for medicine because the dogs hang out in here. The stuff I put in supplements comes from the garden that's more protected from the roaming of our dogs. But this guy, this dandelion, Taraxacum officinale, is such a potent, well-stocked source of so many vital nutrients for our well-being. And it is very much regarded as a whole, as an obnoxious weed. And I know that I'm gonna get on a soapbox a little bit here because I talk about this a lot. Those of you who know me from farmers market, from my local community here, will know that I am really okay with talking about not spraying Roundup on your dandelions. First of all, it's a perennial, and all we're doing is dumping some toxins into the soil, into our groundwater, into the air, poisoning the pollinators who feed on the dandelions. And this perennial herb that we spray with Roundup as a general population is all we're doing when we spray with Roundup is making it more resistant to Roundup, because just like when we are finding all these antibiotic resistant bacteria, because we keep hitting the same bacteria with the same thing that's not killing everything off. If someone's not taking their full dose, it's not killing everything off. We're just training the bacteria and viruses to become more resilient to those things. And dandelions, perennial herbs especially, so all perennial herbs really, they respond the exact same way to things like Roundup. So one thing that we can all do, I know that we can't all have a farm to play with the plants and re-establish nourishing soil, but what we all can do, even those of you who are in cities, we can ask our neighbors to please stop spraying the Roundup and explain to them this very true existence of a perennial herb, that it is just getting more and more resistant to the Roundup. It's just getting more and more resistant to all the glycophosphates. It's getting more resistant. So it's not going to kill the dandelions, it never does. And so again, just like these synthetic or calcium, raw calcium forms of supplements, we are really just dumping our money into the groundwater and in a toxic capacity, because we're supporting a chemical industry by buying this Roundup every year, multiple times a year, and then we are poisoning our soil, we're poisoning our groundwater. So if you don't have the capacity to be growing and nourishing dandelions in the soil, that is something that we can all do. And then of course, going to small batch herbalists in your area, finding me online, finding all the other beautiful herbalists online who are making potent, effective, amazing herbal remedies from natural gardens and nourishing wild harvesting techniques as well. So I challenge you for that if you are not in the capacity to be growing a garden. Yes, that's my little soapbox. Now let's move on to dandelion, Taraxacum officinale. This guy, I could go on and on, like most of the plants that I love and work with so much. The bees' very first food in the spring is coming from this gorgeous yellow flower. You can see them all over the place in the early spring gardens as they get their first dose of nectar from the flowers of the dandelion. So another reason to leave them alone. Just gonna throw that out there. But we have a lot of nutrients available to us in the dandelion. And similar to nettles, as I said in my last video about stinging nettles, very similar to nettles in the nutrient profile, but a little additions, a little bit of a different fatty acid profile than nettles. So we're having more fatty acids, and these are linoleic acids, which are nourishing to our bodies, versus like saturated fats and high cholesterol fats that are promoting LDL cholesterol, instead of fats that we can use that cross the blood-brain barrier, that we are able to absorb and use as energy and feed our entire bodies, especially our big, beautiful brains and our skin. But the nutrient profile goes on, and that it contains dietary fiber, so soluble fiber, that is building and feeding our existing gut flora as that fiber goes into our system. So the soluble fiber is very nourishing to our gut flora, our probiotics, our microbiome in the gut, right? We all are very aware of the science that is behind a nourished, functioning, diverse population of bacteria that lives in our gut. And soluble fibers, especially inulin and other starches found like in white potatoes at a concentration, and dandelion leaves, that white milky sap that comes off of a dandelion when you break it. And if you pull a dandelion out of the ground and where all the little tiny rootlets are that broke off as you pulled that dandelion, you'll see that white starch coming out, and that is that soluble fiber. That is inulin. That is feeding our gut bacteria. We are essentially, instead of taking a capsule probiotic, what we're doing when we're feeding our gut flora, we are nourishing our unique, genuine gut flora that lives in our small intestine, large intestine, and all throughout our bodies, instead of, again, looking for an outside source of a different kind of probiotic. Those are applicable for sure in certain situations, but what is really amazing is when we can feed our existing gut flora, when we can establish biodiversity within our own bodies to nourish our brains, to feed them with substances that are going to promote healthy food cravings. They're going to promote healthy assimilation of nutrients and a healthy functioning brain. We're going to eliminate brain fog. We're going to be getting all of the nutrients out of our bodies, and we're going to have a healthy and highly functioning immune system because of these nourished gut flora, microbiome, all the bacteria, all the yeasts that live there. So dandelions are an amazing source of soluble fiber and inulin specifically that are nourishing our gut flora. Also has a high amount of dietary fiber, so insoluble fiber, but this helps to build a healthy bowel movement. And so when we have a healthy bowel movement coming through, we are detoxing our entire colon. We are grabbing junk that's like left in our colon. And so that can be very detoxing and nourishing to our colon as well. So these fibers are really awesome, and especially the soluble dietary fibers like inulin. I'm just looking at my notes. That's what I have over here on the side. I have so much I can talk about, but I want to stay on track a little bit for you guys. So healthy carbs are also in dandelion, proteins and fatty acids. And again, these are nourishing substances. And the one study that I recently read to absorb, to have all this fresh in my mind, was talking about dry dandelion leaf. So dried leaf is not going to be as high in the protein or as high in the fatty acids. They do stay as the plant dries, but from what I love to do and what I really know how to work with is fresh plant material. So the levels are going to be higher when we're working with fresh plant material with things like protein and fatty acids. And again, I talked about the fermentation process that happens, or that can happen when we're drying herbs, increasing all the water solubles, increasing all the fat soluble vitamins and nutrients and antioxidants. That is a little bit of a different subject, and this is how diverse and dynamic herbalism can indeed and is when we are working with the plants in a true form. So again, fresh dandelion greens, fresh dandelion stem and root being extracted fresh, we are getting the high amounts of protein, fatty acids, and then again the inulins and the dietary fibers. So I really like my dandelion juice that I make. It's delicious, it's nutritious, and it has all of the fresh available nutrients for us to have a huge array of these plant nutrients available as we drink or take an extract that is a fresh preparation. And it's another reason why I use the entire plant, root all the way in flower, all the way through. Like, it's not just the leaf, it's not just the flower, it's not just the root. With my extracts, it's all the whole spectrum of the plants, because the plant is already made perfectly by creator's standards to be a whole food material, whole food as medicine material. So that's why I like working with the fresh plant material of most of the plants that I work with in the apothecary. Calcium, phosphorus, potassium, magnesium, beta carotenes, vitamin A. Hello, that is a big one because the skin loves beta carotene, vitamin A. It is also the retinol, really nourishing to the brain. And there are studies pointing to the alleviation of things like ADD, ADHD, the focusing disorders, beta carotene being really nourishing to the brain and of course our eyeballs. We love that. Thank you, vitamin A. We also have vitamin C and vitamin K, and then the fatty acids, like I said. So this full nutrient profile of dandelions is available specifically when fresh. The levels do drop when it's just generically dried plant material, but again, I have another, we already know, as I've discussed, that I have another solution to that problem, being the when you ferment the plants, that we get an uptake in the amounts of the water soluble, fat soluble, and antioxidant levels of vitamins and minerals inside of these plants. So when we do dry plants specifically, that is where we see a difference in the dried plant material having a higher dose of in the fresh. So that is the dandelion. Now I will touch on one thing. There are levels of natural nitrates in a dandelion. So people who have a sensitivity to certain plants like spinach, brassicas, kale, cabbage, the word is not coming to me at this moment, but people who have that irritable reaction when they eat too much of those types of foods, it's because of the nature-made nitrates that are in things like dandelions and the brassica family of plants like kale and cabbage and all these things, Brussels sprouts too. So something to be aware of if you know your body, which I'm probably almost certain that most of you know your bodies very well. The dandelion is going to be one of those plants to just take in small doses, or maybe the dried plant material doing infusions is a little more nourishing for your specific body. So again, remember that you know your body better than I do because I don't know you. And if I do know you, we've already discussed these things. So be aware of those types of things because dandelion is one of those, and it can be a little too much for certain constitutions. So please be aware of that, my friends. So a little more of the herbal terminology as to what dandelions have been linked to be, and the science that is supporting these things, which is so beautiful. So diuretic, definitely going to urinate more, helping to detox, getting your system moving, getting those waters coming through your body, getting all of the waters into the small intestine through your urinary tract, so that we are absorbing, we are flushing, we are doing all the things that our eliminatory organs are designed to do. So that is another thing that dandelion has that is really amazing, is the diuretic effect. So again, for people who retain fluid, if you have swollen wrists, if you have swollen feet, if you have, if you're detoxing or you are going through a cleanse process, dandelion is going to only help that situation because it has a diuretic effect, and it is also a digestive bitter, and specific digestive bitter to the liver, and strengthening the eliminatory capacity of the liver. So by nourishing the liver, by being a diuretic, we're getting a really great cleanse. And then of course the chlorophyll that is found in the dandelions is going to be helping to leach onto heavy metals, bringing those through our systems as we urinate, as we get really healthy bowel movements from the dandelion plant. So that is another very exciting thing, and I love that. I really work with the dandelion a lot in my digestive bitters. It's in all 4 of the digestive bitters that I have in the apothecary. I am also going to have it as a dried plant material option when we get that going in the midsummer. So it's going to be in the apothecary a lot, and that's because it has all of these amazing components that are highly nutritious, and we can get nutritious plants. I want to stress that, like when we work on the farmscape in a regenerative way, we are nourishing our soil. We are having plants in the ground like perennials that go deep into the ground that are bringing nutrients to the top and re-establishing a really healthy soil structure. There is a lot of narrative and verbiage going around that farms are just ruining the planet, but we are shifting our farmscape, and a lot of people that I know in our area are as well. And when we work with these perennial plants, when we are nourishing the soil with them and with nourishing fertilizers and things like this, we are able to have a well-balanced, established microbiome and healthy microbiome within the soil structure as well. So that is something that we are working on, and a lot of my colleagues, a lot of my associates in the farming industry are doing the same thing, and it's very exciting. So I want to talk about the root a little more specifically. The root has been studied a lot in the strengthening of the liver, but also lowering blood cholesterol. Very, very beautiful. There are lots of studies out there showing that this plant, along with fenugreek, creates more cholesterol receptors in our blood vessels, so that when we take these plants, and specifically dandelions and fenugreek, when we take these plants, there are chemical studies. There are studies showing the chemicals in the plants that are actually encouraging and increasing more cholesterol receptors in our bloodstream. That is amazing. That plants can give our bodies the ability to create more receptors, to create a healthy system. And think about that. When you have more receptors, more cholesterol receptors specifically in your bloodstream, and you're getting healthy fats from these plants. So we're getting healthy fats from the plants that we can use as energy and fuel for our brain. And then we're also getting, on the other hand, added cholesterol receptors to then extract cholesterol, more bad cholesterol from our blood. So amazingly fascinating, and I love all of this so much. It just takes a little bit of research. It's not really hard to go onto ResearchGate and PubMed. I do link sometimes, but technically FDA does not allow herbalists to link to studies to show the proof of what we talk about. So I challenge you again. I love challenging y'all to go onto PubMed and research Taraxacum officinale, research dandelion on ResearchGate. You sometimes have to do some digging. Like all research and all scientific avenues, I find studies that say herbs are dangerous all the time, but we know that they are plants, and we know that when we dig into those research portals, usually we find a malicious source of funding. And I'm just going to leave that there and get off of my soapbox again. So sorry, my notes are kind of in a weird spot. So I think I'm going to wrap up. That's kind of what I wanted to touch on. Oh, no, one more thing. There are anti-cancer components of dandelions as well. There are research studies happening showing that certain cancer cells are physically killed by constituents in dandelions. And again, that is a medical research study that is available to everybody on ResearchGate and PubMed. And I am so obsessed with these herbs because they are going to be our saviors. They are going to be the ones that are going to stay here and nourish our land and nourish our bodies beyond any other man-made sort of situation that we find ourselves in. And dandelions are everywhere, and especially when you know where they are in your own neighborhood and you know the land that they are on, there's some food, there's a root that you can dig and you can eat and you can boil. There's a salad, and there's a pretty salad. Just add the flowers, put the flowers into your salad. I am all about eating these beautiful flowers because it adds the color, which we're getting more antioxidants, And then it's just that extra added sweetness from the beautiful petals and the nectar that's in the petals. So a few challenges for you today, as per usual with me. Go on to ResearchGate and get some research under your belt. It can be a little intense, and I know that it's not for everybody, but I challenge you just to go look for the evidence, as well as getting on your neighbors who are spraying Roundup and explaining why the Roundup doesn't work on perennial herbs. Thank you again so much for joining me. I am honored to be your herbalist. I'm honored to be your farmer and medical intuitive. And again, follow all the links in the show notes below. And I look forward to seeing you again in the very near future, as I am really getting comfortable with this modality of visualization. So thank you for being here, my friends. Thank you for being one with nature and one with the plants. And I am sending you so much love and gratitude and grounded, rooted energy into this earth. And I again thank you, and please follow me on Instagram, get on my website and get on my email list. You can take the plant spirit quiz that is atop the first page, I think all the pages actually, and that'll get you on my email list, and it's a little fun. And please feel free also, and feel called if you do, to share this video, like and subscribe. Thank you so much.